The Rainbow of Pain. The Rainbow of Pain. Part 1. Arrival. The man appeared on a Tuesday in the middle of a crosswalk in Meridian Park, wearing clothes that made passers-by physically flinch. His leggings were a clash of magenta and a green so aggressive it looked like it was trying to escape the fabric. His sleeveless top was divided into quadrants of orange, white, a blue so deep it hummed, and a yellow that seemed to lean toward the viewer. His shoes were each a different color, and neither of those colors existed in any crayon box. His headband completed the assault. It was every color at once, not blended, not striped, but somehow all of them simultaneously, and staring at it for more than 3 seconds produced a faint sensation of vertigo. He stood in the crosswalk and looked around with the expression of a man who had just opened the wrong door in his own house and found himself in someone else's living room. Not panicked, just deeply, fundamentally confused. A car honked. He stepped out of the road and onto the grass of Meridian Park and stood there for a long time, turning slowly, taking in the trees, the sky, the joggers, the dogs. Everything was so dim. And his name was Kael. He had been running. Not running in the earth sense, where one foot goes in front of the other and the ground stays where it is. Running in his sense, where the ground was a spectrum path and your feet had to match the frequency of each color band or you fell through. He had been mid-stride on a violet band when the band broke, or he misaligned, or something, structural in the path itself, failed, and he had dropped through the gap between frequencies and landed here. Here, where the air was almost colorless, where people moved like they were swimming in thin soup, where the light source, one light source, just one, a single sun hanging in a blue sky like a bulb in an empty room, cast everything in what he could only describe as a persistent, unrelenting beige. He did not panic. He was a trainer. Trainers assess, adapt, and assign. That was true in any dimension. He assessed. He was somewhere. It was real. He could not go back, at least not by running. He had no resources, no identification, no currency. He had one skill. He had the ability to see what a body needed and prescribe the work to make it need less. He adapted. He would train. Part 2. The First Diagnosis. Kael spent 3 days observing. He sat on a bench in Meridian Park and watched people move. What he saw alarmed him. Their red channels were almost universally stagnant. Their orange intake was sluggish. Yellows were present, but unfocused. Greens were the worst, barely circulating in most people, as if they had forgotten how to draw from the environment around them. Blues were pinched in nearly every spine he examined from a distance. Violets were dim. Indigos were practically dead. These people were, by his standards, in critical condition. Not one of them would have passed a basic spectrum alignment test back home. Not one. On the 4th day, he approached someone. Her name was Dana. She was sitting on a bench near his bench, drinking coffee and looking at her phone. She was 34, an office administrator, and she had chronic lower back pain that she had simply accepted as part of being alive. She slouched. Her left shoulder sat lower than her right. Her breathing was shallow and arrhythmic in a way she had never noticed because she had never been told to notice. Kael sat down next to her. She glanced at his outfit and then looked again, longer, the way you look at a car accident. "Your yellow is leaking from your left shoulder," he said. "You'll be dead in 6 months." Dana's coffee stopped halfway to her mouth. "I'm sorry, what?" He pointed at her shoulder without touching her. "Here, the yellow channel. It's not contained. It's bleeding into your green, which is already nearly inactive, and the overlap is creating pressure in your lower spine. You've been feeling it for—" He tilted his head, reading something she could not see. "At least 2 years. It's getting worse." Dana put her coffee down. "How do you know about my back?" "I can see it," he said, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. It's quite visible. Would you like me to assign you corrective work? She should have walked away. She should have called the police or laughed or taken a photo for her friends. Instead, she heard herself say, "What kind of work?" He smiled for the first time. It was a warm, genuine smile that had nothing to do with his clothes and everything to do with the fact that someone had asked him a question he knew how to answer. "Come here tomorrow. Sunrise, bring water."
"What's your name?" "Kael. Kael, I'm not getting up at sunrise."
"Your orange channel requires it. You'll be dead in 6 months." "You said that already." "Yes, it's still true." Dana came back the next morning. Part 3, the assessment. He had her stand in the grass with her arms out and her eyes closed. He walked around her slowly, making small sounds of acknowledgement, like a mechanic examining an engine. "Your red is present, but it's pooling in your hips. It should be moving. Your orange is low, very low. You're not drawing enough from your food. You eat, but you don't convert. Your yellow is the leak I mentioned. Your green is almost absent, which is unusual and concerning. Your blue is pinched at the base of your skull. Your indigo is dormant, which is normal for this." He paused, searching for the right word. "For this place." "Your violet is actually not bad. You have a strong violet. That's why you're still functional."
Dana opened one eye. "What does any of that mean?"
"It means I'm going to give you 4 exercises. You'll do them every morning. In 3 weeks, your back will stop hurting. In 6 weeks, you'll sleep through the night. In 3 months, you won't remember what the pain felt like."
"And if I don't do them?" "You'll be dead in 6 months."
"Is that actually true?" Kael considered this honestly. "Probably not. But your quality of life will be significantly reduced. The death timeline is an estimate. I don't have enough data for this environment to be precise." Dana laughed. She laughed hard. Kael watched her laugh with patient curiosity, as if laughter were a phenomenon he was cataloguing. "Okay," she said. "Show me the exercises." Part 4, the work. The first exercise was called color sprints. Kael had her sprint across the park grass until she felt a color rise in her chest. She was to stop the moment she felt it. "What color?" she asked. "You'll know." She sprinted. She felt winded. She felt her heart pound. She felt her legs burn. She did not feel a color. "Again," Kael said.
She sprinted again and again. On the 5th sprint, she stopped halfway across the field and stood with her hands on her knees, breathing hard, and felt something she could not name. A flush, a warmth that started in her sternum and spread outward. It wasn't a color, but it was something, and it was new.
"There," Kael said from 50 feet away. "That's your red. You found it. Good. Now do it 3 more times."
The second exercise was inverted breathing counting. He assigned her a number, 247, and had her breathe in for 7, hold for 3, and out for 5, while counting backward from 247 by 7s.
"Why 7s?" "Because your spectrum profile is a 7 pattern. If you were a 4 pattern, we'd use 4s. "What happens if I use 4s? "It would be inefficient, like running downhill in shoes that are too big. You'd get there, but the energy cost would be wrong." The breathing pattern itself was legitimate. The counting was arbitrary. Dana found it oddly absorbing. The math required just enough attention to keep her mind from wandering, and the breath pattern forced her lungs into a rhythm they had never maintained. By the end of the first session, she felt like she had more air in her body than she had ever had before. The third exercise was shadow alignment. He had her stand in the morning sunlight and adjust her posture until her shadow pointed through her dominant color channel. She had no idea what this meant, but the process of adjusting her stance, her arm angle, the tilt of her head while watching her shadow on the grass was essentially a mindful body scan. She found a position where something in her spine released. She hadn't known it was holding. "There," Kael said. "Your green is open now. It won't stay open. You'll have to do this daily." The fourth exercise was the prism. She held a plank position, a hard, honest plank, not a fake one, while tracking an imagined colour moving through her body from head to toe. The colour was red on Monday, orange on Tuesday, yellow on Wednesday, and so on. The plank was torture. The visualization was strange. Together they created a kind of moving meditation that made 10 minutes feel like 2 and also made her core stronger than it had ever been. She came back the next day. And the next. Part 5. The Class Grows. Dana told her friend Marcus about Kael. Marcus was a software engineer with the posture of a question mark and the energy level of a phone at 3%. He came to the park expecting to laugh. He left with a spectrum profile and 4 exercises. Marcus told his sister Priya, who told her co-worker Janet, who told her husband Tom, who told nobody because he was embarrassed, but he showed up anyway. Within a month, Kael had 11 regular students. They met in the northeast corner of Meridian Park on the flat grass near the oak trees at 6:30 every morning. Kael was always there first, sitting on his bench, the bench that had become unofficially his, wearing whatever new combination of blinding colors he had assembled from thrift store finds. He never explained where he got the clothes. He never explained anything about himself that wasn't directly relevant to training. The city adjusted to him the way cities adjust to everything. Joggers gave his class a wide berth. The ice cream truck that parked near the playground moved to the other side of the path. A city maintenance worker once asked if he had a permit for the group. Kael looked at him with genuine confusion and said, "Permit?" The maintenance worker looked at the group of adults doing something inexplicable on the grass, looked at Kael's outfit and decided this was above his pay grade. He never came back. The class developed its own culture. Students began using Kael's terminology in normal conversation. Marcus told Priya his orange was low today. Priya told Janet her green was finally open. Janet told Tom his violet was showing, which he chose to interpret as a compliment. New people arrived in a steady trickle, drawn by the same chain. A friend won't shut up about this guy in the park. You go to watch, you end up diagnosed, you end up doing color sprints at 6:30 on a Wednesday morning, wondering what happened to your life. Part 6. The workouts evolve. As the class grew, Kael's methods expanded. He never repeated a workout exactly. Each session was tailored to what he saw in the group's collective spectrum that morning. The prism sequence became a daily staple. Students held progressively harder poses. Plank, then side plank, then a deep lunge, then a wall sit, while moving their assigned color through their body. It was brutal. It was also, without anyone quite realizing it, a structured progressive resistance program with a meditation component. People got stronger fast. Spectrum relays replaced color sprints for group days. Students paired up and sprinted in relay, handing off an imaginary color frequency to their partner, who had to receive it before sprinting. The receiving was a breathing exercise. The sprinting was a sprint. The combination was exhausting and weirdly joyful. Frequency holds were Kael's version of isometric training. Students held a static position, a squat, a push-up at the bottom, a bridge, for a duration Kael assigned based on their channel strength. He would call out adjustments in real time. "Marcus, your blue is drifting left. Shift your weight to your right heel." Marcus shifted his weight. Something in his knee that had been bothering him for months released. He didn't question it anymore. The prism walk was the cool-down. Students walked slowly through the park in single file, tracking a color from their feet to their head and back down with each step. It looked like a cult procession. It was actually a walking meditation with a body scan component. Joggers who passed the line of adults walking in eerie silence through the park at 7:15 in the morning gave them a wide berth and did not make eye contact. None of it was impossible. None of it was dangerous. All of it was hard. Kael pushed people to their edges but never past them. He seemed to know exactly where the edge was before the student did. When someone was about to collapse from a frequency hold, he would say, "Release, 1 second, before they would have fallen. He was never wrong. Part 7. The Doctor. Dr. Raymond Osei joined the class in its third month. He was a second-year emergency medicine resident at Meridian General, 30 years old, built like someone who had once been athletic and then spent 4 years of medical school not sleeping. He came because his neighbor Janet would not stop talking about it, and because his own back hurt from 12-hour shifts, and he was willing to try anything. Kael diagnosed him with clinical precision. Your red is strong but chaotic. Your orange is completely burned out. Your blue is compressed at C5 through C7. Your indigo is actually active, which is rare here. You're a healer?
Raymond blinked. I'm a doctor, yes. Your indigo is why. Healers have active indigo. It's how you find the broken places, but your indigo is working without support. Your other channels need to feed it. Right now, it's starving.
Raymond wrote this down later in a notebook he kept in his locker at the hospital. He had been mapping Kael's terminology to physiology since his first session. Red seemed to correspond to cardiovascular function and circulation. Orange to metabolism and energy conversion. Yellow to, he wasn't sure yet, possibly neuromuscular signaling. Green to something connective, fascial maybe. Blue to spinal and cerebrospinal function. Indigo was the one that fascinated him. If Kael was right, indigo mapped to something like diagnostic intuition, pattern recognition, the thing that made a good doctor good. Violet, Raymond hadn't figured out. Kael said violet was the integration channel. Raymond suspected it mapped to something psychological, maybe even something spiritual, and he wasn't ready to go there yet. He never told Kael about the notebook. Kael would not have understood the question if he had asked. Raymond kept coming to class. His back stopped hurting, his energy improved, his diagnostic instincts in the ER sharpened, though he would never attribute that to color sprints and prism walks in a public park. He kept coming. Part 8. The Student Who Saw. Eli was a data analyst for an insurance company. He had been in the class for 4 months. He had started the same way everyone did. A friend dragged him. He got diagnosed. He stayed. He was quiet, methodical, and the kind of person who took things seriously once he decided they were worth taking seriously. Kael had told him early on that his green channel was unusually receptive. "You're a receiver," Kael had said, with the same tone he used for everything. Absolute, clinical, kind. "Most people in this place are emitters. They push out. You pull in. It's a good trait for a student. It means you'll learn faster than most."
Eli didn't know what that meant. He did his exercises. He got stronger. His chronic anxiety, which he had managed with medication for years, began to ease. He slept better. He stood straighter. He became, by his own assessment, a different person than he had been 4 months ago, though not in any way he could point to on a chart.
Then, in his 5th month, something changed. It started small. He was at his desk reviewing claims data, and he looked at his co-worker Brendan and felt, saw, sensed, something around Brendan's shoulders that was the wrong shape. Not a colour. Eli didn't see colours, but a pattern, a texture in the air around Brendan that was different from what it had been yesterday. Denser, slower, wrong. He shook it off. He went back to his spreadsheets. The next day, it happened again. This time with a woman named Carla who worked in the adjacent department. Eli didn't know Carla well. They had spoken maybe 4 times in 2 years. She walked past his desk on her way to the printer, and Eli looked up, and the same wrong-shape feeling hit him, but stronger. Much stronger. It wasn't around her shoulders. It was everywhere. Her whole. He reached for Kael's language, because it was the only language he had. Her whole spectrum was wrong. Not misaligned, the way Kael described most people. Not stagnant or pinched or leaking. Wrong the way a fire alarm is wrong. Urgent, blaring. Eli sat at his desk for 10 minutes after she walked past, trying to convince himself he was imagining it. He was not imagining it. The feeling had been specific, localized, and it had carried information he couldn't ignore. He knew with a certainty he could not justify that something inside Kael was failing. He found her in the break room that afternoon. She was making tea. She looked tired. She looked, now that he was paying attention with his actual eyes, pale. "Hey, Kael, this is going to sound weird. Do you have a minute?" She looked at him with the polite wariness of a co-worker you barely know, asking you something out of nowhere. "Are you okay? You look like you've been feeling off." Kael's expression shifted. Something behind her eyes relaxed, as if she had been waiting for someone to ask. "I've been really tired lately," she said. "Like, really tired. And I've been getting headaches. I went to my doctor last week, and she said it was probably stress. She told me to get more sleep."
"Are you getting more sleep?"
"I'm sleeping 10 hours a night. I'm still tired."
Eli's stomach tightened. The wrong-shaped feeling was pulsing in his chest like a second heartbeat.
"There's this thing I do in the park. This guy, he's a trainer. He does this kind of assessment. He looks at how your body's doing, and he's weirdly accurate. Would you be willing to come with me tomorrow morning, just to see what he says?" Kael looked at him for a long moment. "Is this a cult thing?" "No, it's a park thing. You'll see." Part 9. The Diagnosis. The next morning, Eli brought Kael to the northeast corner of Meridian Park. The class was already in progress. 23 people were doing the prism walk in single file through the grass, tracking colors through their bodies in eerie silence. Kael watched them and then looked at Eli. "This is the thing you do?"
"Every morning. And it helps?"
"More than I can explain." Kael was standing near the oak trees, observing the walk, making small corrections. "Janet, your yellow is drifting forward. Bring your shoulders back. Tom, you're holding your green too high. Let it drop to your hips." He saw Eli approaching with Kael and walked over. His expression was open, friendly, ready to diagnose a new student. Then he looked at Kael. Eli saw it happen. Kael's face changed, not dramatically. Kael was too controlled for drama, but the ease left it, the cheerfulness, the professional confidence. What replaced it was something Eli had never seen on Kael's face before. Seriousness, urgency, something close to alarm. Kael didn't greet Kael. He didn't introduce himself. He stood in front of her and looked at her the way Raymond looked at an X-ray that was worse than expected. "How long?" Kael said, not asked, said. "How long what?" Kael said. "How long has your spectrum been doing this?" "Doing what?" "I don't know what you're—"
"Your red is collapsing, not stagnant, not slow, collapsing. It's being consumed. Your orange is gone. Your yellow is—" He paused, and the pause was terrifying because Kael never paused. "Your yellow isn't leaking. It's being erased. Your green is inverted. I've never seen a green inverted. Your blue is fragmenting. Your indigo is screaming. Your violet—" He stopped. He looked at Eli, then back at Kael.
"This isn't a training problem," he said. "This is a fixing problem." He turned and scanned the class. "Raymond!" Raymond broke from the prism walk line and jogged over. He saw Kael's face, and his posture shifted from casual to clinical in a heartbeat. Years of ER training took over. "What do you need?" Kael pointed at Kael. "Look at her. Tell me what you see." Raymond looked at Kael. He saw a tired woman in her 40s, pale, with slightly yellowed sclera and a fine tremor in her hands that she was hiding by gripping her teacup. He saw someone who looked like she had been losing weight without trying. He saw someone who looked sick. "I see someone who should be in a doctor's office, not a park," Raymond said carefully. "I agree," Kael said. "This is not a training problem. This is a fixing problem. Your world has fixers. She needs a fixer now." Raymond looked at Kael. Kael looked at Raymond. Something passed between them that Eli couldn't quite follow, a communication that used the class's shared language but went deeper than terminology. "Describe it to me," Raymond said. "What you're seeing, be specific." Kael spoke for 90 seconds. He used the full-color vocabulary, channels, frequencies, alignments, inversions, collapse patterns. But he spoke differently than he did in class. Faster, more precise, no analogies, no metaphors, raw data. Raymond listened with his eyes half closed. Eli watched the doctor's face and saw something he recognized from his own experience, the feeling of a pattern clicking into place. When Kael finished, Raymond opened his eyes and looked at Carla. "Ms. Reyes, Carla Reyes." "Ms. Reyes, I'm an emergency medicine resident at Meridian General. I need to ask you some questions. Can you tell me, have you noticed any bruising recently? Easy bruising, places you don't remember bumping?"
Carla's hand went to her arm. "Yes, I thought it was just, I'm getting older, I thought."
"Night sweats?" "Yes." "Fevers? Even low grade?" "Some. I thought it was a cold that wouldn't go away."
"Unexplained weight loss?" "About 15 pounds in 2 months. I wasn't trying."
"Joint pain? Bone pain?"
Carla's eyes widened. "My legs, my shins. I thought it was from standing at work."
Raymond turned to Kael. "Where exactly is the collapse centered?" "Here," Kael said, and pointed at Carla's sternum. Then he moved his hand to her left side, below her ribs. "And here, the production site. It's failing. The red is being generated wrong. It's not carrying what it should carry. It's—" He searched for words. "It's malformed. The body is making broken red." Raymond went very still. "Ms. Reyes," he said, "I think you need to go to the hospital. Today. Now. I'm going to call ahead to my attending at Meridian General. I'm going to tell her what I'm seeing, and she's going to get you in immediately." "What's wrong with me?" Carla's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "I have a suspicion, but I'm not going to guess until we get blood work. What I can tell you is that whatever it is, the earlier we find it, the better your options are. And right now, we're early. Right now, we have time." He looked at Kael. Kael looked back. "Thank you," Raymond said. Kael looked confused by the gratitude. "For what?" "For seeing it." Kael considered this. "It's quite visible," he said, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. Part 10, The Hospital. Raymond called ahead. He used words like acute and presenting with, and I know this sounds unorthodox, but trust me. His attending, Dr. Annika Patel, had learned to trust Raymond's instincts in the ER. She told him to come in. Carla was admitted that morning. Blood was drawn. A bone marrow biopsy was scheduled. The diagnosis came 3 days later. Acute myeloid leukemia. The blood work confirmed what Raymond had suspected from Kael's description. Broken red was, in Earth terms, malformed red blood cells being produced by a marrow that was failing. The bruising was thrombocytopenia. The fatigue was anemia. The bone pain in her shins was leukemic infiltration. It was early, it was catchable, it was treatable. Carla began chemotherapy within the week. Part 11, The Recovery. The treatment was hard. Carla lost her hair, she lost weight, she didn't have to lose. She spent nights in the hospital that felt longer than nights should be allowed to be. But the leukemia responded. The blasts in her blood dropped. Her marrow began to recover. Her red counts came back. Her platelets stabilized. Dr. Patel called it a complete remission at the 6-month mark and said the word curative with cautious optimism. Carla credited Raymond. Raymond credited Kael. Kael, when told about the outcome, said, "The fixer did the fixing. I only identified the problem. That's assessment, not treatment. Different discipline." He seemed genuinely unaware that he had done anything remarkable. He had seen something wrong and pointed at it. In his world, that was the obvious first step. You couldn't train a body that was broken. You had to send it to a fixer first. Then when the fixer was done, the body came back to the trainer. This distinction, between assessment and treatment, between training and fixing, was, as far as Kael was concerned, the most basic distinction in his profession. It would be like a personal trainer on Earth prescribing chemotherapy. That wasn't your job. Your job was to notice the problem and refer. The fact that his assessment had been accurate enough to guide an Earth doctor to an Earth diagnosis did not strike him as significant. His assessment was always accurate. That was what assessment was. Part 12. The Student Who Would Teach. Carla came to the park. Not immediately. She came after the remission, after the hair started growing back, after the strength started returning. Eli brought her the way he had brought her the first time. She stood on the grass in the northeast corner of Meridian Park and watched the class and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope was too strong a word. Relief was closer. But underneath the relief was something else, a curiosity that felt almost physical. She wanted to understand what Eli had seen that day in the office, what Kael had seen in the park, what Raymond had heard in the words. She wanted to see it too. Kael diagnosed her carefully. Her spectrum was recovering. The red was rebuilding. The orange was flickering back. The channels were raw and fragile, the way a healing bone is fragile. "Training?" she asked. "Light training," Kael said. "Very light. Your fixers did good work, but the channels need to be re-strengthened slowly. We'll start with breathing and walking. No sprints for 2 months." She joined the class. Eli stood with Kael after class one morning, 3 months after Carla's remission. The park was quiet. The other students had gone. The bench that belonged to Kael was damp with dew. "You saw her?" Kael said. Eli didn't ask how Kael knew. Kael saw everything. That was what Kael did.
"I saw something," Eli said. "I don't know if it's the same thing you see."
"It's not," Kael said. "Not yet. What you see is the shadow of what I see, the impression, the echo, but it's real. You're not imagining it." "It scared me." "It should have. You saw a body failing. That's frightening. It's also useful." Eli looked at the grass. "Can I learn to see it better? The way you see it?" Kael was quiet for a moment. It was a rare thing, Kael being quiet. He was thinking, and when Kael thought, it was with the same absolute focus he brought to everything else. "What you have," Kael said, "is a receptive green channel. It's rare here. In my world, about 1 in 60 has it. Those people become trainers. Not because they're stronger or faster, because they can see. The seeing is the foundation. The exercises are just the prescription. Without the seeing, you're just assigning work blindly and hoping. Is that what you're doing, assigning work blindly?"
"No, I see, but most people can't. So they memorize patterns instead. They learn rules. If the shoulder is low, prescribe this. If the breathing is shallow, prescribe that. It works, but it's not the same. It's painting by numbers instead of painting."
"And I could learn to paint?" Kael looked at Eli with an expression Eli had never seen before. It was not the clinical assessment look. It was not the cheerful trainer look. It was something older. Something that came from whatever world Kael had fallen out of, from whatever tradition had trained him before he fell through a gap in a violet frequency band and landed in a beige park on a beige planet. "I can teach you to see," Kael said. "Not the way I see. Your eyes are different. Your channels are different. Your world is different. But you have the foundation, the receptive green. If you train it, it will open. And when it opens, you'll see what I see. Translated through your body, your world, your light. It won't be my colors. It'll be yours." "What would I do with it?" What I do? You'd assess, you'd prescribe. You'd send the broken ones to fixers and you'd train the rest. You'd stand in a park and you'd watch people move and you'd know what they needed, and then you'd give them the work. Eli felt the weight of it. Not heavy, just present, like a new channel opening.
Would I wear the clothes?
Kael looked at his own outfit. Magenta, aggressive green. The headband that was all colours at once. The clothes are functional, he said. The colours feed the channels. In this world, the light is, he searched for the word, thin. The clothes help concentrate what's available. So yes? So yes. Eli smiled. Okay, teach me. Part 13, The New School. The training was different from anything Eli had done before. Not physical, or not only physical. Kael had him sit for long periods in the park, watching people walk past and describe what he saw. Not what his eyes saw, what his green channels saw, the impression, the shape, the texture. In the first week, Eli saw nothing but what his eyes always saw. People walking, people sitting, people existing. In the second week, he started seeing the shapes. The wrong shape feeling he'd had with Carla became a more general perception. Everyone had a shape. Most people's shapes were, not wrong, but unfinished, incomplete, like drawings that had been started and abandoned. In the third week, the shapes started having texture. Some were dense, some were thin, some moved, some didn't. In the fourth week, colour appeared.
Not the way Kael saw colour. Eli's colours were muted, pastel, like watercolour compared to Kael's oil paint. But they were there. A faint blue around someone's shoulders. A wash of orange in someone's midsection. A dim red pooling in someone's hips.
There, Kael said, sitting beside him on the bench. You're seeing now. It's faint. It'll get stronger. The channel opens slowly, like a muscle. You train it, it grows. In 6 months, you'll see more than I could teach you in words. And then you start prescribing. Light work at first. Simple cases. Stagnant red. Pinched blue. You give them exercises and you watch what happens. If the exercises work, you learn. If they don't, you learn differently. That's how training works. You assess, you prescribe, you observe, you adjust.
And the broken ones? You send them to Raymond. Eli looked at Kael. Raymond's going to be busy.
Raymond is already busy. That's what fixers are, busy. Your job is to find the ones who need him before they know they need him. That's what trainers are, early. Eli's first student was a man named Greg, who worked at the hardware store and had a stagnant red that Eli could see as a dim, unmoving patch in his lower body. Eli prescribed color sprints and inverted breathing counting. Greg looked at him like he was insane. I'm supposed to sprint until I feel a color?
You'll know.
Greg sprinted. He didn't feel a color. He felt winded and annoyed. He came back the next day because Eli's certainty was, like Kael's, oddly persuasive. On the third day, Greg felt something, a flush, a warmth. He stopped and stood with his hands on his knees. There, Eli said from across the field. That's your red. Greg looked up. How do you know? I can see it. Greg looked at Eli the way Dana had looked at Kael 8 months ago, like he was deciding whether to call the police or come back tomorrow. He came back tomorrow. Epilogue. The field. A year after Kael fell through a gap in a violet frequency band, the northeast corner of Meridian Park had changed. The class met every morning at 6:30. There were 47 regular students. Kael ran the main group. Eli ran a smaller group on the south side of the field, working with newer students, training his eye, prescribing exercises with the quiet certainty of someone who could see something you couldn't and was trying to help. Raymond came in every morning. He wasn't on shift. He kept his notebook. It was thicker now. He had started presenting cases at grand rounds using terminology no one else understood, and his attending had stopped questioning it because his diagnostic accuracy had become, in her words, unsettling. Carla was in remission. She came to class 3 days a week. Her spectrum was rebuilding. Kael said her violet was strong. She didn't know what that meant, but it felt true. Dana, the first student, had become an unofficial assistant. She couldn't see colors, but she had memorized the exercise catalogue and could correct form with precision. Kael called her the pattern keeper, which she chose to interpret as a title of respect. The city had fully absorbed them. Joggers routed around the field. The ice cream truck stayed on the south path. A small handmade sign appeared on the oak tree near Kael's bench. No one knew who put it there. It said, "Rainbow of Pain, 6:30 a.m., all welcome." Kael saw the sign one morning and read it. He turned to Eli. "What does that mean?" "It's what people call the class, the Rainbow of Pain."
Kael considered this. Pain is accurate. The training is hard. Rainbow is... He looked down at his clothes, then at Eli, then at the 47 people doing the prism walk in single file across the grass in the early morning light. Rainbow is accurate too.
He sat on his bench. The sun came up over the trees. The light in the park was thin and beige and ordinary, and 47 people moved through it in silence, tracking colors through their bodies, and a man from another dimension watched them with the satisfaction of a professional doing the only job he knew how to do, and a student he had trained stood beside him, seeing faint watercolor shapes in the air around the people he was learning to help, and a doctor across the field was writing in a notebook, and a woman in remission was breathing in for 7, holding for 3, and breathing out for 5, and the morning was quiet, and the morning was good. The end.